Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I am Siddharth Zarabi and we are live here from the India Today Group studios at the World Economic Forum in Davos. We've had a good set of guests and now two other guests who can talk about India's startup story. Divya Gokulnath, co-founder of BYU, and Bhavin Pandya, co-founder and the co-CEO of Games 24 by 7. The topic of the conversation is funding winter or coming spring. But before we take that topic, I want to tell our viewers that if there is a winter, we've had a good bit of it over the last couple of hours. Thankfully, the flurry has stopped, so we won't be that cold. Divya, let me take that question to you first. Is it funding winter or is spring coming soon?
It's so cold right now. So my answer is leaning to one side, but the actual answer is that no one really knows, right? Trying to predict something which is so uncertain, I think only time will tell what is going to happen. We all hope as startup founders that things get better, and we're very hopeful of that. But nevertheless, according to me, to start a business, to start or to move a company forward, funding is one aspect, right? But what's more important is the team, is the mission, is the ultimate aim that you have for the company. And there are a lot of ways in which we can navigate whatever winter there is or whatever anticipation we have of the spring to come by moving and adapting to the changes that are required based on the weather outside.
Bhavin, I've always wanted to ask this question, and I'm glad I'm getting this opportunity with you now. Standard finance 1.0 that was taught in business school, and when I was there, told us that any business plan is funded and over many years. So a downturn or a war or something else happening is maybe 1 or 2 years. So why would suddenly deep-pocketed investors who have put in a lot of money in startups, looking at the promise, the business plan, the vision statement, suddenly want to hold back? Is it because they were over exuberant in the first and they didn't look at the fundamentals? Because I would argue from accounting perspective that you need to have a multi-year view and small cycles should be ignored.
So, so first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here as always. I want to say, and let me start with what we've done because I can share that experience the best. So at Games 24/7, which is India's largest multi-gaming company, where we offer Rummy Circle and My 11 Circle and U Games, which produces casual games for the international markets, we've always focused on unit economics, right? We've always said that, look, if I'm spending a rupee today, how long is it going to be before I make that rupee back, right? And in our view, that still remains the right way to think. But what has happened over the last few years is that as our economy has grown as fast as it has, investors have become very, very bullish. Investors have been like, all right, let's put all the fundamentals, like you said, accounting 1.0, a little bit on the sideline and let's try and grab as much market share as we can. So let's not worry about whether we will make the rupee that we've spent on marketing back or not, but let's just keep focusing on grabbing market share.
I agree with that, but that still doesn't convince me. How would they switch within a matter of 4 quarters?
I'm coming to that. So what has happened is this has happened over the last few years. It is not something that happened in the last 2 years. This has happened since 2015-16, right? And what happened during COVID is this trend continued because a lot more money was being printed, by our friends in other parts of the world. And all of that came into India because India was economically the most stable country to invest in. But then what you saw was a worldwide recession, which is where the investors took a step back to say that let's wait and watch, like Divya rightly said. Let's see what happens over the next few months before we go in there in a big way. And I think that's what's
Divya,
really
the
happening.
point that is said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, sounds like a cliche, but I'll continue to press that point. If India is a growing market and within the current global economic outlook, India is certainly the best in terms of a standard rate, even if inflation is a bit of a problem. But our inflation is in some ways still better managed. Then why would investors suddenly send out signals of a loss of confidence?
So it's more, and it's not just about investors, right? If you look at the entire mindset of founders, of entrepreneurs, of the investor ecosystem, it's more from a growth mindset to a profit mindset or sustainability mindset. What we wanted from startups some time back is different from what we expect from startups now, right? It all used to be just about revenue before, or it just used to be about acquiring more users. But today it's more about adding more value. Now, see, investors holding back, and like you said, see, India, the global recession will hit every country. India is one of those bright spots, which is more proof than any other country.
You're a teacher, so I'll ask you to explain it as a teacher.
Yeah.
Is the tulip mania equivalent of startup funding over?
I would say no one really knows the answer to that.
Okay.
So it would be wrong to say yes or no. But I would want to believe that the expectations from a funding today by investors is different from what it was 3 years back, which is normal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just? I want to say one thing here. I agree with what you're saying, but I do want to add that to your point that I don't think that investors have said that okay, we're going to stop investing. Like you're saying, what they're saying is let's now first invest in profitability, in sustainability, right? The money is there. Right? It's just that they're investing, they've changed their focus to say that. And see, they were not wrong back in the day when they said, let's grab market share, because what they were seeing world over is that at the end, one or two companies will survive. There'll be a ton of consolidation. The one that has the most market share will survive. And then they can start worrying about profits.
Adding to Bhavin, actually, as segment leaders, we actually benefit from a more careful investment into companies. So there are, for example, we have 9,000 edtech startups in the country. But what is going to differentiate the good from the great is the kind of quality that you offer and the value that you add. So investors just more careful before putting their money. They're just placing their bets more carefully and deciding to go over sustainability and profitability over just growth.
Would I be wrong in saying that you as the number one company in the space that you operate, today you don't sound so sure and confident? There's a bit of shakiness in your answer. Is that because you were talking about the sector and not your company?
No, for me, it's never been about whether investors invest or not, right? For example, if you take BYJU's, first 6 years we were completely bootstrapped. So we know that we know how to measure, and we always do measure the ROI, like Bhavin said, on each and every rupee that we spend. So we know that where it's going.
BYJU's has the capacity to sort of tighten its boots once again if funding.
Every startup can do it.
No, but for you.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, Siddharth, to your point of have the investors now stopped investing, right? I think what has also happened is that they're now taking a view, right, that look, India is still the right market to invest. There is no other market better than India to invest even now, right? Given what the government is doing to
only the power of their lenses has increased.
Yeah, probably, right? So, but still, there is no other option they have. So they will come back to India.
I want to turn from the macro to the more personal thing. Okay. And I don't know about both of you, but I'll ask this question. What was the first business plan that you presented? Do you recall who you presented to, and what was that experience?
Yes, we do. So we became members of the Indus Entrepreneurs TIE back in the day. This is in 2005, actually.
15, 17 years back.
Yes, and we presented it to this gentleman who was an angel investor, Mr. Tariq Khan at the time, who was interested in gaming in his own different way. And that experience was fairly interesting because he had very different ideas on gaming. We had very different ideas on gaming because gaming is very large. But because it was gaming, it brought us together. And he sort of said that, yes, I'm willing to sort of take the jump and be the first angel investor. So that's how it all started.
So you succeeded on your first attempt?
Yes, we did.
Wow.
Mine is going to be a very different story,
yes,
Bhavin.
Okay.
So our first investment, so we were bootstrapped for the first 6 years, actually. And just as we wanted to start investing in technology, because we went from a classroom to a stadium where we were teaching 25,000 students at one time. And we realized that if we have to scale this from thousands to millions, you need to take technology by your
This reminds me of Dhirubhai Ambani holding his
Yes,
shareholder
that's right,
meetings in
that's
a
right.
stadium.
But it also showed two ends of the spectrum, right? It showed how there is so much need for high quality learning, but it also showed the inefficiency in a purely physical model.
So because the numbers grew, you had to bring in outside investors.
No, the numbers grew, and hence we had to tap into technology to create something which would personalize learning for each and every
So
student.
did BYU succeed on the first
So
presentation?
so there was never a presentation. So the presentation.
Wow, okay, there was no
the presentation.
no Excel sheet, no business plan.
No, the presentation was one of our investors walking into one of our classrooms where there was no teacher, but there was a live broadcast happening and students sitting and attending in pin drop silence. So that's how the first investment happened from Mohandas Pai and Ranjan Pai.
And
no
they called
business
and
sheet,
said,
and then they wanted
"Here's
to
the
meet.
first check."
Here is the first check.
And what was that amount?
I'll tell you offline, okay?
No, you know why I want you to tell our viewers, because there are students, young people. I also get the opportunity to interact with young people, and on the sides they say, "आपने business journalism किया कुछ बताइए सर कैसे पैसे how do we
I'll tell you,
raise
no,
money?"
I'll put to the values. I'll tell you our amount was 20 lakh rupees. Was our first investment.
and that
this
was
is in 2005. So the exchange was 1 to 40, by the way.
Okay.
It's 1 to 80 today.
Okay.
So it was 20 lakh rupees. So about $50,000.
$50,000.
No, I want to tell young people today, and I think it's very important that in between this funding winter that we call, to start a business, you don't need $10 million. What you need is 2 to 3 people with a great idea and lot of segments. You can actually come together, create an impact, start a business, and actually make money.
स्टार्टअप का आइडिया कहाँ से लाएं? आपको मैं टीचर के नाते पूछ रहा हूँ, बिकॉज बहुत सारे लोग उसको कहीं से कॉपी पेस्ट करके लाते हैं एंड दैट डजंट सक्सीड इन इंडिया.
The beauty
Where do
of
we
this
get the
is,
startup
नहीं,
idea?
ये beauty है कि when you are really passionate about something that you do.
But idea नहीं है तो passion कहाँ
नहीं,
से?
passion तो आ गया. Teaching में तो we had so much passion that it just led that we realized that it was great content which was core, and that passion for teaching became the idea for a business, and it is a beautiful segment to be in, because you do well, you do good, you do good, you do well, and today I'm able to have 150 million learners across the world.
Why do IIT, IIM people, students, and rightly so, I don't hold it against them, get a bulk of funding versus people who are from lesser known institutes?
Because it's education is important. It just shows that, right?
It does, but can I
But
say
does
something?
does that system teach them to be entrepreneurs or like number wizards?
It's also that the best of the people get into institutions like this, right? So they're automatically more adept at coming up with fantastic ideas to change
It's
the way.
creme de la creme.
It's
Bhavin.
just
yeah, I
the
mean,
best
that's-
go to the best, right? In a
That
way.
yes, so and that used to be absolutely true. I agree with Divya, but I want to say that over time the trend is changing, and I'll tell
Did
you
you
why,
benefit
right?
from that?
Well, I went to a good institution, yes, and my
Tell
I
us
didn't.
about it.
I
Tell-
didn't. Okay, we are not from IIT.
So I went to an engineering school in the US, Purdue University, and then I was getting my PhD
That's
in
pretty
economics
good.
at NYU.
Oh, wow. So, you sounding pretty modest
Thirdly,
about that.
My co-founding partner went to IIT Bombay and then was at NYU with me, which is where we met. So we did, but let me say this, right? Today, the kind of startups that are getting funded are startups where someone is solving some inefficiency in our country. Our country has so much diversity, but along with diversity comes inefficiency in whatever you're doing.
Have you done startup investments yourself as an angel on the side?
No, I have not.
Have you?
So the thing is, there's so much time which goes into building what we are
Yes,
building that we
that's
need
right.
that singular
the reason
focus
I
that we
asked you
don't.
this question, Bhavin, and tell me, a business plan, 5 years of projections, you can work with Excel and multiple formulas.
Yeah.
How does a budding entrepreneur or someone who desires to be an entrepreneur demonstrate the conviction behind those numbers?
I will talk about that, and I will speak to that because I know that while I've not personally invested, Games 24/7 has set up Games 24/7 Ventures, which is going to invest over 400 crore rupees in the Indian startup ecosystem, right? Our first investment.
So what will
which
you
we
be
made-
looking for?
Yes, so I'll tell you the first investment we made last year was in Crick Heroes, which is a platform that sort of democratizes scoring and offering cricket logistics. That come with their own cameras where they'll shoot commentary live. You don't need the likes of professional commentators to do that. And what was the problem they were trying to solve? The problem they were trying to solve is today, if you play gully cricket or if you play cricket in your society, you have no way of knowing whether you're improving or not. So let me give you a scoreboard where you can constantly track your scores and you can improve. They were solving an efficiency problem where people didn't know if they could get better at playing cricket. And now that platform is taken off in a big way. And that's exactly what we look for. We look for businesses that have very long-term opportunities, but in the short run, our investment will help them create and meet that great long-term potential.
How did you get your idea for Games 24/7? And what is the current company what you had envisaged?
100%.
Where did you get your idea from?
Because we were passionate about gaming. Both Thampi and I played a lot of games. And I'll give you my
because
background.
You had studied in the US.
And I'll give you my background a little bit, right? I became an engineer, didn't like engineering, moved to economics because I wanted to do economic policy, solve the world growth problem that was there. But as soon as I got into theoretical economics, I realized it wasn't for me. But I was in New York City. I was 23 years old. I was on a full fellowship. So the mind wanders. At New York City, you know, when you're young, there's so many things to do. Most of which we will not talk about. But the ones we will talk about are playing a lot of online games, right? Which is where we realized that there is a lot of opportunity in India to do something like this. Why? Because we all need forms of entertainment. The Indian middle class was growing very healthily on the back of the BPO sector, which had come into India in a big way, right?
Did the idea come at a bar or a coffee shop?
Well, actually in a computer lab as we were playing games.
Okay.
Instead of doing
typical Indian story.
PhD work, we were playing games in our economics computer lab. That's where the idea came from.
Divya, I know this is a question which I should also pose to BJYU himself. We'll do that some other time. But how would you respond to the same question?
As long as his games are not keeping my students away from studying and learning, I'm fine.
Wow. Okay. Oh, I didn't even imagine that.
I should clarify. Our games are for people who are over 21
You are
years
bad
old.
for studies, right?
No, we are for people who are over 21 years old. They finish studying.
Shouldn't they be hitting the gym rather than playing some make-believe stuff online?
Well, they should do both.
Why?
They should do both. Because the gym will give you physical dexterity, our games will give you mental dexterity.
What's your
They're all
top?
games of
What's
skill.
the top game played on your platform?
So it's Rummy Circle is our best game. It's a game of memory. You have to really understand what the player is going to drop and be able to play, very properly to be able to win. And in the long term, most people who have better skill win the game.
And how does chess fare? Do you offer some?
We used to offer chess. Great question. We used to offer chess. But if you think about chess, it is, it is a game in which a lot of cheating is possible. Because you can play against a bot and then emulate that move against your player.
Well,
so chess as a business
touched
model
a very raw point.
didn't work. So.
You were coming in on this.
No, I was just when I was hearing about how how they are in fact expanding and investing into various other companies. So for us, I was looking back at our journey, how we've grown is both the organic and the inorganic route. So the organic route is where we build our own programs. Our app, in fact, was launched in 2015, where we saw 2 million students come on board in like 1.5 months, and today we are at 150 million. So, and we also realized that look, if we have to enter other markets, US for example, there it makes sense to partner with companies who understand the market better. So we invested in and acquired Tinker, Osmo and Epic, one which is now the world's largest coding community, one which is the world's largest digital learning platform, and the other which is the world's largest reading platform, which is Epic. So right now, and in our journey, for us, it's always been about how can I add more value to learning for more depth, and how can I add more breadth.
Bhavin's company is keeping students away from your...
No, guys, again, over 21 years old.
He said over...
I have to thank you, Epic. It was a lifesaver. My older son loves to read, and he was on Epic all the time, reading a ton. So thank you for that.
I want to pick up another point, and as there is a funding downturn and the pressures of running businesses, we've seen several startups flounder. I'm not getting into motives or what specific cases are, but when you look back at your own story, do you think you would like to have done your corporate governance in any different way? This question is not because I'm pointing towards something. It's a generic question. Would you want to do corporate governance in a different way?
No, fair. And it's a good question, right? And speaking of edtech, I always say that we are pioneers in edtech, not in perfection. And, today we started as teachers, but more importantly, we're learners, and we continue to learn every single day. So yes, there are a lot of things we could have done better, because we were not business people who started this. What we did with so much passion intersected with the need in society.
Would you have done sales differently, Divya?
Yes, that's why we moved now to a completely internal sales model. So I'll tell you why we pivoted also. So prior to the pandemic, our biggest challenge was awareness of online learning. People wouldn't understand because when we launched
And
the
then
app,
it exploded.
yeah, so when we launched, even apps were very rare, right? Learning apps itself was like something which was very new. So we had to help people understand how it would benefit them because we saw that those who used, so like he said, his child used online learning, the love for reading became the love for learning. That's what it leads to.
What
But
have you learned from the criticism?
what I've
And there's
learned,
been a substantial amount.
yes, what I've learned from criticism is that if your core is very strong and if your intent is right, you can create something which will last for decades if your mind and heart is set to it.
Have you changed something internally when it comes to selling courses, ensuring that people, kind of those who don't fully understand what it involves, get a chance to reconsider,
Of course,
and don't get sort of
that's always
railroaded?
that's always been the motive. So even if you look at it, the big pivot we've done right now is that we had a feet on street sales model before, because prior to the pandemic people didn't know the benefit of online learning, but right now, because the awareness is all over the place, everybody knows the benefit of online and hybrid learning, we have moved to an internal sales model where every minute of that demo is completely recorded, right?
And where does the buck stop in the internal structure when it comes to sales now?
So by default, every sale is unapproved. So the sales get approved at a central level after a 3-level audit. So even if a sale happens where it should not have happened, so for example, if the parent couldn't afford the product, they're automatically eligible for our Education for All initiative. Today, we're impacting 5.5 million children all over the country from the remotest parts. We partnered with Niti Aayog, with the AP government. So we are impacting people on the other end of the spectrum, and it's very heartening to see that this is their primary mode of learning and they're first generation learners of
Quick
their
and
family.
final point on this subject, to all the criticism and that has come about, what would you tell the wider community who's watching us as to what BYJU's is going to has done and is continuing to go to do in 2023 and beyond to address all those questions that were raised?
So we've always been cognizant of the fact that we are learners every day, right? That being said, the people who are closest to the action, and this is just to tell that sometimes the way it is portrayed is not what it actually is. In fact, we've had the best last 1 year ever in terms of the number of products that we've added or the services that we've created.
And from
The
a revenue
people,
point of view?
even from the revenue point of view, we've done really well, right? You'll see the numbers very soon. But the people closest to the action, which is investors and employees, you would see a very strong indicator that things are moving the right direction because no one has really quit. So from the first 300
But we
employees,
laid off some people.
270 people of our core is still with us. The top 6 founders of the company are still with us and no investors have left. Yes, we had to optimize, not just on the people front. We had to optimize on marketing. We had to optimize on people. We had to optimize on operations. It was the most difficult thing for us to do. Seriously.
But
It was sometimes calls have to be taken. Sometimes what Divya and BYJU want is not what BYJU's as a company demands.
Absolutely.
And those calls have to be taken.
I know as a teacher, I can get that sense that you're constantly listening to that feedback loop and making corrections.
It is extremely
and I'm
important
glad you
that-
do that because, not just because of your valuations and the status that you enjoy. It's
So that valuations can come and go. Values are forever.
wonderful.
If
That's
I
a great
can-
line. Yes.
If I can sort of add in, so we had a slightly different problem, right? But also very similar to what
You had a
you said.
regulatory problem.
Exactly,
Gaming
exactly.
and gambling.
Yeah.
They're just 1 or 2 alphabets here or there.
So there is this big debate between games of skill and games of chance. And games of chance are not allowed in our country, right? But games of skill are. And I think that's the clarity that this framework, the draft regulation, is going to bring about, in a way, under the IT rules, obviously, in a way to say that you can't offer anything that's not legal in the country, right? And so there the government has pushed us in a big way. But for
Has the
us,
government, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, has the government done enough to check some of the fly-by-night operators?
They are, and that's the big discussion that's going on right now. In fact, today, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, the Honorable Minister of State for the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, met with all the key stakeholders in the gaming industry, and that was their big concern, that we need to stop these fly-by-night operators, we need to stop the illegal operators, and the way to stop them is through banks and payment gateways, to become really strict on them, to say that you cannot offer payments coming through
What the
fly-by-night
RBI did
operators.
when it came to crypto,
exactly.
for
But
example.
yes, something like that. But to this point, right, that if you are, to Divya's point about creating value, right? If you are focused on sustainability, on unit economics, right, you will be able to sustain yourself in the long run. You will be able to, beat the cold winters like we speak of, right? And that's been our focus. When the states banned us, we lost 60% of our revenue. 60% of our revenue gone, but slowly and steadily, because we knew we were in the right, we were doing the right thing. The high courts of those states overturned those orders. We quickly grew, and I'm very happy to hear what Divya said. I echo the same sentiment. You see the numbers. We have grown fantastically well this year, with Rummy proliferating in all parts of the country. My 11 Circle having a fantastic IPL and World Cup, and we're just going from strength to strength from here.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
before you get a frostbite, we have to go in. But maybe we have to say, adding to him, as startup founders, there's no room for complacency.
Yeah.
And especially and I will say for education, we have a huge opportunity to create a global champion coming out of India.
I'll be very honest. There are 2 points that I'm taking away, and I end this, and to any viewer who wants to take note. One, the business of bans in our economy where policy isn't made is not good. We have seen this happen with crypto. We've seen this with other sectors. People come and build businesses only to be told later on that it's not working well. You shouldn't be blaming them. If there was a lack of a regulatory framework, it's the government's job. And to Divya's point about education, I think that's the single biggest fundamental need to transform India. And as we talk from a very developed part of the world and a very beautiful part of the world, which is Davos, the weather continues to turn. But the sense I get that I end this conversation with is that there may be a funding winter, but it's not minus 20. Bhavin, Divya, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed that conversation. And thank you for being such sports on that. If you've been watching, thank you very much. We'll be back with more. Till then, goodbye.